The United States Constitution was written to form a more perfect union that would enable checks and balances to prevent a bloody revolution from being a necessary measure to abolish tyranny. Excellent though it was, Colonel George Mason feared the national government might one day end in a tyrannical aristocracy. The rights of the people needed to be secured against potential corruption at the national level. One of the solutions the framers decided upon can be found in Article 5, which gives state legislators the authority to call a convention that bypasses federal legislators to amend the Constitution. That gives we the people the opportunity to make some long overdue structural adjustments. Maybe term limits would be a good place to start. Here's how the process works. Citizens request their state legislators to pass a bill called an application, with operative language identical in each state. These legislators of the states then pass the application. Generally, only a simple majority is needed. Congress shall, by law, call a convention of the states as soon as it receives applications from 2/3 of the state legislatures. That's 34 states. Delegates chosen by the state legislatures attend the convention. Each state only gets one vote at the convention, but they can send as many delegates to represent the state as they so choose. Amendments are proposed, debated, and voted upon at the convention. Finally, ratification takes place in the states. Each amendment must be ratified by 3/4 of the states in order to become part of the U.S. Constitution. But what about a runaway convention? Let's get a reality check. Like constitutional law scholar Robert G. Nadelson says, there are far more political and legal constraints on a runaway convention than on a runaway Congress. The convention delegates, also called commissioners, are bound to the will of their state legislatures. If they don't vote as their states demand, they get recalled. They might even get sent to prison. Furthermore, a full 3/4 of the state legislatures, we're talking 38 state legislatures, must ratify each and every amendment in order for it to become part of the U.S. Constitution. Even Alexander Hamilton and Abraham Lincoln, who favored national government, emphasized that Article 5 gives states authority over the national government. Hamilton writes that national rulers have no option upon the subject. The words of Article 5 are peremptory. The Congress shall call a convention. And Lincoln says the convention mode seems preferable in that it allows amendments to originate with the people themselves. Article 5 Convention of the States is a safe route to stopping federal overreach. Civilizations rise and fall. Let's be a civilization that saw the cycle of collapse coming and broke it.
There are those out there on both sides of the aisle who oppose what we're doing. We know about the supporters, but there are opponents on both sides of the aisle too. They fear the idea of a runaway convention. We hear this from Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives. In responding to them, I would like to be direct, if perhaps a bit harsh. And in doing so, I will quote one of my favorite founding fathers, and that is Sam Adams. Sam Adams, in dealing with the people and talking about the people who opposed the fight for liberty, said this: if you love wealth better than liberty, if you love the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, then go home from us in peace. We need neither your counsel nor your arms. Crouch down and lick the hands that feed you, and may posterity not remember that you were our countrymen.
The Constitution was written by folks like you. They were almost all state legislators. They had to give more power to the federal government than the Articles of Confederation, but they wanted you folks, the state legislatures, the states, to be at the top of the food chain. Does anybody believe that the states are at the top of the food chain? Do you believe any of you are at the top of the food chain? I served in the House and in the Senate. I see Yvette back there. She served in the House. And we don't see you guys at the top of the food chain. You guys are shoveling the stables. You do what you're told, right? And if you don't do what you're told, we'll take your money. Well, how did the Constitution get this way? Well, in part because you gave up power. When I say you, I mean you, the state legislature. The biggest giveaway of power obviously occurred in 1913 with the 17th Amendment, where you controlled me. I was a senator, and I would have had to get appointed by you up until 1913. And you, because of that, had the power to stop everything bad that would affect your state from happening. Because if you didn't like it, you just pull the senator back. But you gave that away. Well, the founders put a second provision in there to put you at the top of the food chain. So you gave away one, and this one, Article 5, you've never used. I don't know what that says for all you guys. I think the founders believed that people in the federal government would become corrupt with power because, well, every Republican in the history of the world has seen that. So they anticipated that these people who were, leaders of the country would get the opportunity to try to grab more and more and more power. Now, they thought they put a provision there to stop that, but you gave it away. So they expected legislators in Washington to abuse their power. But what they never anticipated is that you wouldn't use your power.
Welcome to another Wednesday Night Live, folks. So, yeah, the government, the founders never anticipated that the state legislatures would never use their power. And today, I'm going to get into Article 5 because while I talk about it on just about every Wednesday Night Live, today is special because today I've made the decision that this is the only thing that matters. Today, I've made the decision that after a week, and a week that is like most weeks, of listening to news reports about how could they protest in favor of terrorists, what's going on with the Speaker of the House, how can we function like that? All of this drama, the war in Ukraine is like, watch out for Taiwan, all of these things. And I listened to them, over and over and over again. And I realize that as serious as any one of these individual issues is, it's noise. It's noise because it's going to continue forever unless this happens, unless Article 5 becomes a reality. And the fact that there are so many people in this world, more importantly, in this country, who don't understand what it even is baffling to me. And if you're in the camp of, you're tired, you're just sick and tired of the government playing war games around the world, using human lives as pawns to get across political points, the government trying to align with globalists and people who have not your best interest in heart, right? If you're tired of the structural damage in the federal government, the constant promises with no resolution, if you're tired of all of these things, all right, this is the solution. So I'm going to take time today to get into it and really use one of the live broadcasts to really talk about it and answer questions accordingly. All right. Now, as normal, despite the fact that I've got some 17,000, almost 18,000 followers on Facebook, all right, I still have a larger audience on Rumble. because I am in full shadow ban mode. And frankly, I don't care if I'm talking to myself today. I need to get it off my chest. For those of you who are on board, and I can see some of you out there, God bless you. And let's get into this. I'm going to start it off. All right. So I played that clip in the initial ticker video, and I let it run. But I'm going to end up separating that from the long-term video. So to get this conversation started, for those of you who watch this after the live broadcast, I want you to be able to understand the basics of what we're talking about here, because in general, you may have heard through the likes of any wide variety of Soros groups, Women's Labor Now, or Common Cause, or even a so-called conservative group, John Birch Society. They're all on the same message that this is the scariest thing we could ever do, that the American people should never exercise this power because it's just far too scary. Who do you think would be scared? Listen to what the power is, and then I'm going to get into it.
The United States Constitution was written to form a more perfect union that would enable checks and balances to prevent a bloody revolution from being a necessary measure to abolish tyranny. Excellent though it was, Colonel George Mason feared the national government might one day end in a tyrannical aristocracy. The rights of the people needed to be secured against potential corruption at the national level. One of the solutions the framers decided upon can be found in Article 5, which gives state legislators the authority to call a convention that bypasses federal legislators to amend the Constitution. That gives we the people the opportunity to make some long overdue structural adjustments. Maybe term limits would be a good place to start. Here's how the process works. Citizens request their state legislators to pass a bill called an application, with operative language identical in each state. These legislators of the states then pass the application. Generally, only a simple majority is needed. Congress shall, by law, call a convention of the states as soon as it receives applications from 2/3 of the state legislatures. That's 34 states. Delegates chosen by the state legislatures attend the convention. Each state only gets one vote at the convention, but they can send as many delegates to represent the state as they so choose. Amendments are proposed, debated, and voted upon at the convention. Finally, ratification takes place in the states. Each amendment must be ratified by 3/4 of the states in order to become part of the U.S. Constitution. But what about a runaway convention? Let's get a reality check. Like constitutional law scholar Robert G. Nadelson says, there are far more political and legal constraints on a runaway convention than on a runaway Congress. The convention delegates, also called commissioners, are bound to the will of their state legislatures. If they don't vote as their states demand, they get recalled and might even get sent to prison. Furthermore, a full 3/4 of the state legislatures, we're talking 38 state legislatures, must ratify each and every amendment in order for it to become part of the U.S. Constitution. Even Alexander Hamilton and Abraham Lincoln, who favored national government, emphasized that Article 5 gives states authority over the national government. Hamilton writes that national rulers have no option upon the subject. The words of Article 5 are peremptory. The Congress shall call a convention. And Lincoln says the convention mode seems preferable in that it allows amendments to originate with the people themselves. Article 5 Convention of the States is a safe route to stopping federal overreach. Civilizations rise and fall. Let's be a civilization that saw the cycle of collapse coming and broke it.
All right, so that's the basics. All right, those are the basics of how this works. What the process here and the idea here is to undo, all right, a century or more of bad Supreme Court decisions, okay, that have allowed the federal government to grow exponentially in power. It's been death by 1,000 cuts. Most of these decisions have been small, but they've been very impactful. An example, a litany, a laundry list of decisions from the Supreme Court over the last 100 years that have just opened up the Commerce Clause to allow the federal government to control virtually everything, to get its tentacles into just about every aspect of human life, from education to work safety to environmental issues, you name it, and the federal government has reached its tentacles. None of these things, by the way, right, that it's reached its tentacles into are outlined in the Constitution. It has no authority to control education, but it has found a way to do so by creating an enormous bureaucracy that basically hands down money to states who are just all too willing to sell their souls. States are starting to wake up from that, by the way, as they now all start to fight back, realizing what's going on with CRT and this Marxist indoctrination that's going on across our country. But even though they're fighting back, it's almost like it's too late for them to do something other than other than call a convention. Okay. And the only way to undo a Supreme Court decision, the only way to bring power back to the states is through constitutional amendment. That's it. It's the only way to do it. You pay income tax now, right? Must piss you off. It pisses off everybody who has to pay it. That's why the only people who believe in Marxism are these freaking children in college who have no idea what it is to get raked over the coals from the federal income tax, not to mention state taxes and elsewhere, sales taxes and every other tax. But the federal income tax was indeed unconstitutional for all of its existence until the infamous year of 1913, with what went down, what the country atmosphere was like in 1913, I can only imagine. But in that one year, they stripped power from the state legislatures. They didn't strip it. The state legislatures gave it to them, all right, with the ratification of the 17th Amendment. But lo and behold, the 16th Amendment, and I believe it was around April of 1913, all right, it was February, I believe, 1913, where after decades of trying to pass an income tax, the authority to income tax, and the courts knocking it down every single time the progressives brought it up, and it only reared its ugly head during the Civil War because the fear was, if we don't do it, we can't fund this thing and it's all going to fall apart anyway. But as soon as the war was over, it was pulled out. And the courts began knocking it down again. But under Woodrow Wilson, the single worst president in the history of the United States, for those of you who think even dementia Biden was not as damaging as this man, okay? Well, we'll see. He's got time left, I guess. He's got another 6 months or so to continue to, or another year to continue to break things. So let's see how bad he can break it. But they finally got the atmosphere to get it passed in February. Then comes I think it was April or May, where they passed the 17th Amendment, both incredibly damaging to our freedom. And then just to cap off a great year for destroying the United States, they went ahead on the day before December 23rd, the day before Christmas Eve, Woodrow Wilson signs in the Fed into existence. And we now had a central bank. All of that happened in 1 year. All right? But there's no way to undo that. There's no way to undo that damage without constitutional amendments. So that brings us to Article 5. That brings us to Article 5, which is a method, all right, is the second clause of Article 5 of the Constitution, in which the states can convene with the passing of, as it was explained in the video, each state has to pass a petition or a resolution, all right, stating that they want to call for a convention under X, Y, and Z topics. In this particular calling that we're in the middle of right now, where 19 states are already on board, yeah, that's the good news. It's right here. Term limits, fiscal restraints or balanced budgets, and amendments on government overreach. Under those three topics, 19 states with identical language for the calling have called for a convention of states. We need 34. And the reasons we don't have 34 are the reasons why I am very loud in my voice when I talk about this subject. Because the reason we don't have 34 is because state legislators, who most Americans don't even know, are the most powerful entity by design in this country. People tend to forget. They get caught up in the Donald Trump drama and you know, is it Trump or DeSantis? Oh, Trump's killing him in the poll. Trump's going to save us. No, DeSantis is going to, no. None of them are going to save you. None of them are going to save you. Not because they don't, not even because they don't want to. They simply can't. The presidency doesn't come with that kind of authority. Neither does any Congress. There's only one entity in this country that can save it, and that's you. That's you. We the people. That's it. It ends there. The founders set this nation up for the state legislatures to be the governing authority. They're the ones who created the Constitution, all right? Almost everyone in the room was a state legislator. And whoever wasn't was appointed by a state legislator. They're the ones who ratified that Constitution. They're the ones who created the federal government. So let me just quickly explain to you how this is designed to work as if the founders were alive today. If you have a grievance, no matter what the grievance is, there was no such thing as a federal grievance or a state grievance. There was just a grievance. And you didn't have to set an appointment to fly to Washington to talk to someone about your grievance. You go to your local district legislator, period. Because that's where it all starts and ends. We've been taught, we've been socialized, we've been misinformed through culture and the repetition of falsehoods like save our democracy as if it were actually a democracy. How many people know that and maybe you do because you follow this channel, but think about it. How many I've talked to high school principals who did not know. Grammar school principals, middle school, all types of educators who do not know that we live in a constitutional republic, and they also don't, and when they're informed of it, they dismiss it and say, it's the same thing. That's not an accident. That's not an accident. And that's what we're up against. All right. It's this decades and decades of idiocy that we have been taught to believe. And why does everyone think it? It's like the Mandela effect. There's something, they usually do with movie quotes because the movie quotes just get morphed a little bit. It like beam me up, Scotty. Like Kirk never really said beam me up, Scotty, but he said things to that effect dozens and dozens and dozens of times. But to make it into social culture, it had to get put into one concise sentence, so it becomes beam me up, Scotty. It's the same concept, all right? They over and over again. You hear everyone. The video that I did on that one, Trump was saying it. I had Bernie Sanders saying it, who you expect to say it. All of them saying, save our democracy, we want to save our democracy. And it's not just them. It's been going on. It goes back to Reagan. Everybody's been calling this a democracy since the 60s, since the ideological subversion began. Since the first generation of programmed doutarus got out of college. Democracy, democracy, democracy. Well, this constitutional republic was designed to be run by the legislatures. They created the federal government. They created everything legally, structurally that we know today. And the federal government, true to the fear of the founders, had started to grow, and consistently, as president after president came in, you eventually get a Woodrow Wilson who feels like, if only I were emperor. If only I were the emperor, I could solve everyone's woes. I could fix everyone's problems, which is insanity. It's insanity, but it happened, and he was there, and he was very effective at playing the role of emperor. Yeah, he still had to go through the systems and processes, but he was getting these people in line like a bunch of leashed dogs. And I just explained to you his accomplishments in 1913. Don't get it twisted. That was all Woodrow Wilson. At some point, the states have to stand up. And when I say the states, I mean the people, I mean you. At some point, you've got to mentally dial out from all the shenanigans that are going on around the world. And I'm not devaluing it by calling it shenanigans. What I'm saying is none of it gets solved until the United States gets its house in order. The issues we have going on with our schools, none of that stops until the United States, until the people rein in the federal government. None of it stops. And the idea that gets perpetrated that somehow a convention would be so dangerous because it would be runaway and they would rewrite the constitution. It's just idiocy that they would convene and try and rewrite the Constitution and bring that back to the states as if it would have some chance of getting ratified. It's lunacy. I've done a series of videos on this garbage, and it's lunacy. But yet here we are. Here we are. When I have these videos that I put out on Article 5, I still get the doot-de-doo who's been blindly following this cult of John Birch Society or one of these Soros groups who come on and try to educate me as to how dangerous this is. And try and explain to me how our first Constitution was created illegally. That it was a runaway convention, the Constitutional Convention. It's straight lunacy. Anyone who believes that, okay, just like the Marxists, they're bowing to somebody who they think knows more than them, and that person is either stupid or is intentionally trying to thwart them. That's where we're at right now. That's where we're at. And it's nonsense. Bob Dorbin says, are you in cause? Officially, no. Well, yes. I mean, I've signed the petition. I'm out here in Southern California. I've signed the petition. I've done things like put together videos and things like that for them. But there is a lot of, with me having the channel, I kept running into, you can't really say this. You can't really say, we got to run this through legal. And I just kind of was like, look, I'll just do my thing. I could support it just as well from here as anywhere else. And kind of that's where it laid. But like from time to time, and they haven't in some time, but from time to time, I've had people reach out to me, and I do speak regularly with people. You might see Mike Arnold come on. I've had him on the broadcast as well. He's the regional director over in the East Coast, managing, I believe 4 or 5 different states there. But I'm not officially, like, I don't show up to, I'll show up to an event if there is one. I've gone to what was it, a letter writing campaign, right? Brilliant campaign. I thought, I don't know how deep it's going to get in California, but we did it because it's the right thing to do. To handwrite letters to your local legislators. I thought it was brilliant. Who doesn't read a handwritten letter? I think that's just awesome. So I hope that answers your question, Bob. I am affiliated in that way, but I don't speak on behalf of Convention of States. So how are you, Arthur Tooth? How are you, Arthur Tooth? So, and yeah, I have no idea how many people in total I'm speaking. My thing is like reading bizarrely. So like, I don't know how many people are actually on there. I can see the Rumble one because it's about 15 people on Rumble. Rumble's always leading the parade. Love you guys. And guys on Rumble, just because I can't put your comments on the screen, feel free to comment in the live chat to the right of the screen. If you have questions about Article 5, if there's something out there that, that you're not sure about, or, you think that there's some sort of paradox that needs to be worked out, I will be happy to address it live on the air. And if there is something by some chance that I don't know, I will get back to you with an answer in the comments. All right, everybody else, I can put your stuff on the screen. It does. My software does integrate. Rumble doesn't integrate with anything, but this integrates with Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, so I can do that. District Captain in Mississippi, Bob Durbin, how are you? And thank you for your service. I have come to start saying that to anyone grassroots in cause, because I think that the service, not all service to this nation has to be military. I think it is an absolute service to this country to be out there advocating for our constitutional rights, and to be out there advocating and trying to educate people on what Article 5 is. Because normally I run these broadcasts, and I'll, at some point, like, I'll start with a topic, usually about, about the parents winning. These days it's usually about parents winning in these Board of Education battles, and that war that's going on, the Save Our Children type of stuff, because that is dear to my heart. I've done a lot of videos on WEF and the Great Reset and all that. I feel like there's nowhere left to go with that. In the end, it's just that you just got to know there's really creepy dudes with a whole lot of power. And if we don't do something, we're screwed. And these people will control this technological revolution that's coming in. And if they control it, and it's not free market, it's going to be a nightmare. But there is a way to prevent that nightmare, and that's what we're talking about today, and that is Article 5, right? So just to go back to the basics that were in that video, I pulled that video, by the way, directly from Convention of States. On the ticker, I had the thing fly in that said that. On this one, I didn't, but that was Convention of States Project YouTube channel. I absolutely encourage you to go to YouTube and Rumble. They're on Rumble as well, to go there and get yourself subscribed. All right. There's not a ton of action going on at the moment, but when things start flying, things start flying. Last year, 4 states joined in a matter of like 3 months. So like when things start popping, things start popping. And frankly, I want to get into a little bit of why something like that happens. Why 4 states out of nowhere, after this has been going on for 10 years, folks, 4 states, boom, out of nowhere, that have always been a no, were a yes. How does that happen? How does that happen? I'll tell you how it happens. It happened literally, one of them happened literally because of one constituent. And I say that not to devalue all the grassroots in the given state. I'm not even going to mention the state. But I'm just saying, a legislator that was blocking it heavily, okay, because everyone's trying to chip away, right? All these grassroots are out there in each state trying to get to these legislators in their district and but this one guy did. He got to sit down, and as the legislator explained it, he was asked to sit down over a cup of tea and go over some of his concerns. And they sat down, and as he explained it on the floor, he says, this gentleman asked me how I felt about an Article 5 Convention of States. And he says, I told him he said, I don't know much about it. And just so you know, this response represents just about the overwhelming majority of state legislatures. He said, he was honest though, I don't know much about it, but pretty much I've been against it. Now, the reason he's been against it, even though he doesn't know much about it, is because organizations like John Birch Society, and again, these Soros organizations who show up at every one of these hearings and subcommittee meetings, etc., and try and scare everybody. They hand out DVDs to these people, and they watch them, and it's frightening, and they make it sound like the world's going to end. And then instead of looking into it further, they just say no. They don't want to be the one on watch when something like that happens. So what the constituent asked him was, hey, you know what? I have some reading material. I want you to make me one promise. He said, will you promise that you'll at least read through this material? And I don't know specifically what the material was, but I'll guess that Nadelson's book was probably in there, The Law of Article 5, among some other literature, historical literature, maybe Federalist Paper 40, a few different things, I'm sure. But he did commit to that, and he went and read. And when he went and read, he came back after 8 years, 9 years of being against it. He came back to be, I don't know if he was a co-sponsor or not, but he may as well have been, because he was out there advocating, not just in favor of, he was advocating for it. Why? Because he understood it. And I told that story to you just because that is the overwhelming majority of states out there. So people ask, well, why is this moving so slow? Well, number one, it is not easy to amend the Constitution, although now, under our current circumstances, it should be. If they could pass two separate amendments in 1913, both of which were damaging to the United States of America, we should be able to call this convention. And the reason we're not calling it, and the reason it isn't happening, is because, yeah. So, and Bob put up conventionestates.com is a great place to get started. You could go to my website as well. I have links there that are directly, is right on the front page. There's a link to go sign the petition. It'll take you over to that specific page there. There's links for Cause University, which I believe you need to sign the petition first to get into. But the petition will actually they'll actually send a letter to your legislator for you. Now, my advice to you, after going through, this exercise that I went through with the handwritten letters, is to write a handwritten letter immediately after, because they're impactful. And legislators have said, yes, we always read the handwritten letters. Why? Because think about a letter just coming to your house and it's written by hand. You're like, what? Like someone took the time to actually sit down and handwrite this letter. You want to know what's in that letter. And if you and 10 of your peers, and that's kind of how the contagion happens, right? Because if you're watching this channel, first of all, you probably have like-minded patriotic friends who love this country, love the Constitution. They may not understand the Constitution in the dissecting stand, getting down to the nitty-gritty, but they love the Constitution. They love this nation, and they're more than willing to learn something. These are the people, right? These are the people that you, as one person who may have seen this message come across from me, and you go down your path and volunteer, and you click volunteer, someone local to you. That the grassroots are spread out all over the country, folks. It's not me trying to start a movement. This movement's up and running and has been incredibly successful. So you're gonna have a district captain, okay, like Bob. All right, like Bob, you're gonna have a district captain, all right, who's gonna give you a call and be like, "Hey, how you doing? Welcome to the club, Patriot. Let's get on with it." And Bob, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but most likely it would be a conversation. This is how my conversation went. It's like, all right, let's go ahead and get you started, and let's get you into Cause University. And now, I was a rare bird because before I even went in and signed the petition, I had researched the living bejesus out of this, and I had watched all the JBS garbage. And I'll admit, when I first heard it, it was like, "Whoa, this is creepy." But I continued because it's a process, right? So I went into Convention Estates. I started, looking into what they were saying, and I weighed the two arguments and came to the conclusion that one organization was being honest with me and one was not. One was being incredibly deceptive. And as soon as I see that someone's trying to deceive me, you're done. You're done. And they absolutely were. And I could give you an example. One of the examples was not misquoting, but using a quote from Federalist Paper 40 from Madison. All right, completely out of context. It was in the last. They use it all the time. It was in the last paragraph of the Federalist Paper, and it was designed. I don't remember it verbatim. It was designed, though, to make you think that Madison knew or felt that he was somehow acting against his commission when he assisted and participated in the Constitutional Convention. And the entire paper before it was all about, read Federalist Paper 40. If you can get through the old English, then you'll be fine. If you can't, I actually have a video out there where I did this, and it's a part of my Runaway Convention playlist where I went into debunking the Runaway Convention using Federalist Paper 40, and I break it down in layman's terms. But and I did that video probably a year and a half ago, but it's still on point. But I saw that, and I read the whole Federalist Paper and was like, all right, these guys are dubious. They're dubious. These are dirty people, and I don't want any part of this. And because I did the same thing with Cos stuff, it's not like I just blatantly, oh, Mark Meckler's my hero, and then just freaking everything he says I believe. But up to, and I still validate stuff that I hear. I validate stuff that I hear from Ben Shapiro. I validate stuff. I don't trust anyone. Glenn Beck, like if anyone I was going to trust, it'd be Glenn Beck. That dude has been spot on. His timelines haven't been the best, but otherwise he's been spot on. But I can tell you, Antonin Scalia, that was another example. They did this completely dishonest video, and I tore it to shreds in a separate video where they tried to argue because they snipped out one little quote that was completely out of context and tried to argue that Scalia was against Convention of States when he clearly was not. You will see who's lying to you and who's not. It doesn't take a lot of work. It really doesn't. It's a little effort, yes, but you will see. Like, I don't want you to trust me. I want you to, if you're looking for sources, hit me up. Hit me up. I will absolutely, give you some good recommendations for books to read. I will give you the videos that I've put out, all have the links attached so you can watch things like Antonin Scalia. Kaz put up a video of Antonin Scalia making a comment about Convention of States from a video that he did, and back in like 1979, it was before he was a justice, but he was still a very, very well-respected legal mind, as was proven by the fact that he became a Supreme Court justice. But at the same time, he was the defense. There was a panel of people who were discussing, what an Article 5 convention, whether we should do it, whether we shouldn't, whether it's dangerous, whether it's not. And Scalia, the entire hour of that video, was in full support, was making jokes about the assertions, and actually said, I just want to see it done once. I don't care much what it's about, what the issue is. And he later said, obviously, I want the issue to be serious, but his point was just getting it done, even if we don't get term limits, which we will. Term limits will get ratified, right? You're waiting for Congress to do that. Good luck. Good luck with that. Right? But even if we don't get, I want to see the 16th Amendment repealed. I want to see it completely repealed. All right? I would love to see that. I would like to see things, I would like to see, look, I got a laundry list of stuff I would like to see. But let's say none of it gets done. We only get term limits and maybe, some sort of balanced budget amendment, and that's all that comes out, and maybe close some of the regulatory agencies, and that's all that comes out of it. The mere fact that it got done, the mere fact that JBS now has to sit down and shut up. The Publius Holders and Soros groups of the world, they have to sit down and shut up. It is not, because the only thing that gives them validation is the fact that this has never been done before. And it's never been done before. It should have been done before, but it hasn't been. It hasn't been because in many cases where it would have gotten done, the government just bowed and did whatever it was. And by the way, that's including the Bill of Rights in that example. The Bill of Rights, that we all, as much as we all love Federalists, you better tip your hat to the anti-Federalists for Bill of Rights, which is without a doubt the most important aspect of the Constitution. Without a doubt. Mason was spot on when he feared that things like speech and such would be in jeopardy. Federalists felt like the Constitution itself without the bill would be good enough. We now know that would not have been the case. They generally don't get violated. Generally. I mean, what kind of assault has the left put on the Second Amendment? And it just keeps getting shot down. To the point where now the only hope they have is to just play the game of playing with the court system, which I hope SCOTUS starts to address. That after something gets shot down, they rewrite something similar, and then they get to keep it until, like that game of cycle has been going on. But in the end, we are still free to carry our weapons. The Bill of Rights has held up well. But the fact of the matter is, those amendments were done, okay, because they were threatening, right? Because there was no Bill of Rights. Mason said, I'd just as soon cut my hand off than sign this Constitution, and was fully prepared to start organizing another convention, which the founders knew would be a nightmare. They'd start all from scratch again. And so they added the Bill of Rights. That's how things have been getting done. But was that convention for amendments ever called? No, it was never formally called because the federal government gave in. Now, this one, I swear, if the federal government starts turning around like, no, we'll make these, like we get to like 30 states, because you're going to start seeing the big guns come out when we get to like 25 states. When we get to like 25, 26 states, you're going to see the big guns come out. You'll see John Birch Society. You'll see George Soros' son. You'll see that organization. And you'll see them on MSNBC every friggin' night telling you about how dangerous a convention of states is. And that's how we know we'll be over the target. That's how you know, just like everything else, that we're over the target. Bob says, when you sign, if in my district, he'll get your contact information, reach out, welcome you, offer you guidance to resources available. No pressure, no solicitation of donations. We're out to educate people. I will 100% validate that is what my experience here in the People's Republic of California was. All right, that's what it was. Now, I think the district captain here moved away. I think she moved to like another area, so I'm not sure how that whole thing went down, but she's not here. There's another one I got trying to get in touch with, but in the end, she gave us a call. Not long. I mean, we're talking one day, like the next day, myself and Jack, who had started this channel with me at the time, had both gotten a call, and she was sweet as can be, and was, I had a ton of questions that I wanted to ask. I was kind of overloading her because I had done all kinds of, I was into, asking questions about multiple states, and, why is, I saw a resolution out there that only has 2 of the 3, and, and she wasn't prepared to answer for every single state's resolution, but so what? She answered the vast majority of my questions. She was incredibly sweet, pointed me to Kaj University, which I gleefully went in and used as a resource. Like there's just a lot of, and it's not just about convention of states. Like they teach you about civics in general. Like you will have resources just to understand civics in general. If there's anything that the Marxists and their ideological subversion has done to damage this country, the number one thing that they have done, well, number 2. Number 1 would be going after our kids. But number 2 thing that they have done is eliminated civics from the classroom and replaced it with the Marxist version of civics called social studies. And incredibly damaging. The reason I have to have this channel and have this conversation with you guys right now is mostly because of that. And that's not new. I went to grammar school and learned social studies. Okay, I didn't learn civics, not until I was an adult, and because I was passionate about the information and went out, I just started reading and learned it. But if there's anything that they've done to damage this nation, the single most damaging thing is to stop teaching civics. And to the doo-doo that wants to say, well, social studies has civics in it. No, social studies has hand-picked pieces of civics in it. All right. I've gone through the overwhelming majority of my life not understanding exactly how this all works, exactly how the founders truly intended for this system to work. I, like many of you, have gone through life, and I don't have any shame in saying that I supported. Like I was in that matrix of supporting the Iraq War, and I believed the garbage that they were telling me was legitimate. It wasn't until after that I understood the military-industrial complex, how that whole thing works, going back, looking at Eisenhower's last speech as he tries to warn us, listen to Truman talk about the CIA. Like you start to put those pieces together, and you get a lesson that you will never get in a United States high school, and it's a shame. It's a crying shame. And frankly, have I ever did I read every Federalist paper? No. But I've read a heck of a lot of them. Now it's become interesting reading to me as if it were a novel. Just listening to the founders' viewpoints on a variety of topics throughout, mostly designed to sell the idea that they had just proposed, which, as we now know, is the longest living document, longest using constitution in the world. It was brilliant, and it was an experiment, and it's still an experiment. We're still learning. That's why amendments are allowed to be in there. We didn't think then, right? It wasn't a thing then that congressmen would do it for life. Their attitude was like, who would want to do this for life? But they were doing it as service. They weren't doing it. They weren't coming out of it millionaires. And that's what's changed. Is that now it's a career. And they're never going to take back they're never going to reel in their own power. They're never going to do that. So it's important for us to understand that we can yell all we want. We can, even if you're in a city like New York, I'm in California, like I understand, I get it. The gerrymandering. I mean, every year every election cycle, I got to look up my district. I have no idea what they changed the districts to. I go and look up my district, and it's not even. It's like not even my city anymore. And I look, oh, they changed me from 41 to 32, and now it includes this, because they're constantly restructuring it to make sure that they win elections. And it's a game that they play in some of these states. But the fact of the matter is, like, I came to realize, you know what? I had a channel going on. The original Patriot think tank's mission was not Article 5, because I wasn't even aware yet of this power that we have. I mean, I knew what Article 5 was about, that it was the article about, creating amendments, but I never heard it articulated in this way as far as power. We started this channel so that we could help people to be able to research. We started this channel to help people to be able to find pieces of legislation, how to reach out to their federal Congress people. And then it wasn't but, a few months into the channel where Jack and I stumbled across Article 5, and then I started reading, and then I started getting into it. Then I saw all the boogeymen that they're saying were going to come out. And I went through that whole process. It took me like a month and a half, because I didn't have anybody like me to just give it to me. And then, we both went in and signed the petition, and then boom, the resources just started flowing. Because now we're in touch with like-minded people in our areas, right? And realizing and learning the way that this nation's supposed to work. I put that speech from Rick Santorum in the intro and the ticker, and I put it in there because when I first heard it, and when he was in the federal government, I was not a huge Rick Santorum fan. I kind of looked at him like, but the fact that he didn't make a career out of it and left and went back to the private sector and just went to make a living, eventually later on coming to join the Convention of States fight, I kind of that alone helped me earn respect for him and realize that, to his fault, I think he might even agree, he was trying to get change from within the system. I just realized that all these favors and back scratching and garbage you got to do ends up getting you nowhere. And it's the sign of how broken it is. It's the sign of how broken the federal government is. And really, that's the entire story. That's the reason you cannot elect your way out of this. There is no way to elect your way out of this. It cannot happen. It cannot happen. You cannot elect your way out of tyranny, no matter who you put into office, no matter who you put in there. It doesn't. It could be your own family, and that this person or someone you grew up with your whole life, and you will vouch for their integrity, to your core. But when they get into that position, Think of the analogy of them winning the election and then being placed in front of a pending avalanche that is coming down the hill. That avalanche is the machine that they just ran for office for. You know, one of the things I love about Gates is that, you know, he's one of those rare birds who's like, he actually talks about his own constituents. It's amazing. It should not be shocking. But think about it now. How often do you hear House members talk about their own constituents who have very specific desires and needs? Like the cognitive dissonance that I had to go through as I was listening to people that I respect, like Levin and some other these people, you know, even Jim Jordan, listening to them step up and defend McCarthy and act like Gates was in the wrong for holding McCarthy accountable for not following through on like if you're being held up to be the speaker, and the only way you can get in is to agree to promise to do certain things, that's bigger even than a promise to the American people, because the American people understand already you're full of crap. But if you're doing it with someone internally, like, hey, look, we'll let you in, but you're going to need to do this and this. But like Gates wisely put in, you know, the provision that only one person needs to call for a vacancy, because he knew he would be that one person if McCarthy started to stray, and stray he did. I could go down the laundry list of things that he did not do. But Gates, to his credit, like when he comes up to speak about it, he's like, yeah, everyone who's bashing him are like, he's making the House dysfunctional. The nation cannot operate this way. The nation this, the nation that. We can't pass spending for Israel. We can't pass spending for Ukraine. We can't pass all national issues. Not one of those people, not one of them were like, my district feels this way. The people in my district think like this. I'm getting letters from the people in my district that say X1. None of them are saying that. None of them. They are all talking national issues. They're all talking the national stage. And Gates comes along. There's this rookie House rep, who, by the way, under their unwritten rules, should get no respect, should just be thrown to the wayside, and has to earn his, you know, has to make his bones in the House, which is another nonsensical practice, because the fact of the matter is, if you get rid of a previous House rep and replace him with a new one, the reason you're doing it is because you didn't like what the other one was doing. The idea that your new House rep now comes into this game where he now has to be disrespected and useless on the totem pole and have no influence anywhere because he's new. That's a kick in the nads to the American people. That's what that is. That's walking into that man's district and slapping every single person in that district in the face. That is not the way this country was designed to run. That is not the way that we are designed to operate. And we don't know that because they took civics from us. And we didn't even know. We didn't even know. We went through life, boomers, Generation X, all of us. We went through life thinking, not knowing as much as we should about the government and how it works. And even if they had civics there, you'd have a lot of people that don't know what, you know, they didn't remember any of it or whatever. But you'd remember basics. You'd remember basics. When it became relevant, you'd remember them. But we didn't even know them. And we were okay with that. They made that switch and we trusted them. And now we're in a place where we know you cannot trust these people. They are not good people. I don't care if they're good human beings when they go home and they kiss the kids and play with the dog and whatever. They're not good people when they sit on that floor. When they agree to play that game, they're not good people. You know, Mark Meckler tells the story. I've heard him say it a bunch of times. He's the co-founder of the Tea Party, and I've heard him say a bunch of times, yeah, how when they finally started succeeding with the Tea Party and putting these people primarying all these Republicans who were not doing what the people want. When they started primarying them all and putting in these new politicians, it was months before those people turned. Months. And that's what led him down the path to go with Mike Farris and start this convention of states movement. And thank God that he did when he did. They've been at this for 10 years, folks. 10 years. What were we thinking the last 10 years? Think about what was on your mind 10 years ago. These folks saw this coming. Imagine tackling this without 19 states on board. I mean, it's a monumental task, but yet here we are. Here we are 10 years later, there are 19 states on board, and things are worse than ever. And the reasons for doing this have been validated more than ever. And I firmly believe when people tell me, oh, it moves too slow, I'm like, it moves as slow as you do. Let's just be straight about it. It moves as slow as we do. Because we're not talking about influencing presidential elections. We're not talking about influencing, state elections for senators. We're talking about local legislators whose elections can be swayed sometimes with votes in the hundreds. Maybe it'll take 1,000, who are impacted when they see as few as 50 or 100 people. That's an enormous deal. If 50 or 100 people take off of work to go to the Capitol to make their voice heard, that wakes their eyes are wide the frick open when that happens. Because if 100 people did that, then there's likely a few thousand out there minimum in their district who are thinking the same way. And that's just truth. That's all that needs to. That's where the approach comes from. And frankly, when they go, it's not like they're acting like a bunch of animale. They're going out there and they're being respectful, and they're winning that way. But right now, the fight isn't even right. The first fight that has to happen is on the education front. It's just not acceptable. It's not. If you're listening to what I'm saying right now, you no longer have an excuse to walk through this valley of darkness blind. I've just given you a flashlight and a path to go on, for you to go and validate for yourself and then sign the damn petition. I've just given you that path. You can no longer can you walk by and be like, you know what? There's nothing we can do. All my hands are up. Oh, the Second Amendment is what I'm counting on. Yeah, I'm buying my ammo. Yeah. If you're that guy, there's no excuse. The entire point of Article 5, Clause 2 being written was to prevent the Second Amendment from being necessary to resolve this issue. That was the entire point. It's to not use it to allow the people that are in power now. If we don't do something to change it, okay, they're going to consume the nation through technology. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. If they're allowed to take control of technology, it's over. And the fact of the matter is, they know damn well what Article 5 is. They know what it is, but they know that you don't. And they're not about to start talking about it in any way, shape, or form. It's not like the Soros groups go out publicly against it. They only show up to the debates. They only show up to the House hearings. They don't want you waking up to be like, wait a minute, the Soros group is against what? JBS is against what? They don't want you. They know you don't know, and they have no interest in informing you. Now, that's what I said. When we get to 24, 25, around there, then you're going to start seeing them, because then they're going to realize, okay, this is catching on. Like, it's hot right now. They're getting close. They're getting close. I remember seeing "I'm Just a Bill" in the electric company. Yep, that commercial was actually played all throughout the 80s as well. All throughout the 80s. The "I'm Just a Bill." If you folks, you might be dating yourself if you admit that you remember that commercial, but it was a little Bill wrapped up, and he was sitting on the sitting on the Capitol steps, and kind of, or some scenes it might be the White House, and he just basically ran around telling you, explaining to you the process of how a law is made, and it's it's good stuff. It's good stuff. But yeah, but honestly, that wasn't even taught in class. That was, you saw that on the electric company. Right? Because the country wasn't tanked yet, right? The 80s, there was a lot of pushback to this Marxist crap. That's how Reagan came in. At his second term, he won 49 states. That may never be done again. That may never be done again. But that's what that was all about. It was all pushback against the ideological subversion, but it didn't slow it down at all. Those professors that were being hand placed in all these universities, that those numbers were still growing. By the time the 90s were over, pretty much every professor in every university was a leftist and borderline Marxist, if not outright Marxist, simply teaching it, feeding them all this garbage, like it's never really been tried before. Like, I don't even know how to respond to it, because if I was a kid, and they were pumping that I mean, I had them pumping some stuff like that to me when I was in college, which was like the early 90s, and like. And I got a C in that class because I wouldn't agree with the guy. If you didn't like Bill Clinton, you were done. That's pretty much you were getting. If you got a C, that was like an A. If you got a C not liking Bill Clinton and speaking out loud, then you took your C. But I took my C. I didn't give a crap. I was like, there's no way. I'm way too outspoken to be taking a bunch of jabber from some coconut in a classroom. There's just no way that was going to happen. But it got far worse than that over the years, and then began in the 2000s to trickle down into high school and eventually into grammar, until it got even into preschool. And now they're just trying to indoctrinate your kids and feminize the men. And it's like the fact that it's all going down like that, and we've just kind of sat, like, I don't even blame the young kids now. You see one of these kids who think they're like one of these 90 genders and stuff. They don't even realize that they just made that up for their generation. Like, they don't even know. They think it's always been a thing, because we didn't stop them, right? These teachers were out there. Now it's different, because now parents know. So then now is a war going on. But before, there was only one side fighting that war, and they were keeping that information as much as they could away from parents, and they were doing it successfully, right? But in the end, we could shut down the entire Department of Education. We can shut it all down. We don't need to ask permission. We don't need to wait for a messiah like president to come in and handle that stuff. We can handle it ourselves and make it much more permanent. Unlike, Trump signed all those executive orders. How'd that work out when Biden took office? I mean, he wiped out his whole presidency with a few eraser marks. I mean, with the exception of prison reform, and domestically, he wiped out the whole damn thing. Because presidents don't have that power. And even if he would have got legislation through, it doesn't, like, the point is, when you put down your foot on major issues, right? Like, let's take a look. I've got this one graphic, which I show from time to time because it's relevant from time to time. And it's who supports, when posed with the question, do you or do you not support the issues, right? The issues on convention of states. You're taking the politics out of it from the standpoint of, oh, well, do you support conservatives on their movement for, right? Like, where a liberal would just be triggered and be like, well, no, I don't support conservatives. Well, you just ask them, do you support term limits? Do you support fiscal restraints and balanced budgets? Do you support stopping government overreach of authority and power? These are the numbers, folks, and I want you to read them a certain way. You see 50.2% of Democrat voters support this. But that's not what I see. What I see is 74.4% do not oppose it. There are only 25% of the Democrat voting base that actively oppose the calling of a convention of states on these issues. And you've got and I guarantee you there's a battle. You've got people like me on one side of that 24%, and you've got people like JBS and their merry band of doodadoos that are on the other side of that. They're trying to miseducate at the same time we're trying to educate. But it ain't about right and left. Those are two wings on the same bird. I've said this a million times, and I'm going to say it again. There is no Democrat Republican nonsense. There are Marxists and there are Americans. Kennedy Democrats are Americans. I don't have to agree with them on every issue for them to be American. I don't have to agree with them on major issues for them to be American. The only values that I need to share with them is that they love America, they love our Constitution, and they want to see this constitutional republic, this great American experiment continue. If they have those things, every other issue, they could love unions. I don't care. They could love public sector unions. They're still as American as hell. And that's just real talk. We can fight about those other issues all day long. But the bottom line is, it's not about what your individual politics are. Okay, Republicans and Democrats are both doing the same thing. Don't even get it twisted. I mean, when you try to break it down, like people are like, oh, the 2020 election was fixed and this and that. Like, even forgetting all that. Even if 2020 goes to Trump, none of the issues that I'm talking about right now would have changed. We still would be looking at a pending $36 trillion debt. I'm sorry. Although the deficit would still be $1 trillion a year, somewhere around there. It's not like there'd be great savings. The jobs numbers would be better, and this is that fluff in economics where, like, oh, look, the job numbers are great. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Don't look at that. Don't look at that 36 trillion, which is what McCarthy just agreed before getting ousted to allow it to go to. With the support of over 200 Republicans, there are only like 5 or 6 Republicans in the entire House of Representatives, in one which they hold the majority, who are not okay with a 36 trillion. 200 plus are okay with a $36 trillion deficit. And are comfortable with cutting the increases in spending and calling it cuts. Oh, well, we were projecting to spend an additional $500 billion, and we cut that additional spending down to $250 million. It's like my wife going to buy a purse. Right? Husbands know this everywhere. They come back and they tell you, hey, you know that expensive purse that I wanted? Well, it was on sale, and it came down $500. So I didn't just spend $500. I saved you $500. That's the kind of math they use in Congress, and they all accept it as being okay. They're all grabbed. These young, aspirational folks go in and they're grabbed by the hand the second they get there, and then explained how it works. They explain to them exactly how the game works. And they're probably initially like, well, no, that's not what I want to do. If you don't do that, you'll get nothing done. You'll be banished. Like, no senator or no House rep should have the ability to banish or like that should be illegal. Yes, there are going to be people who control who gets appointed and whatnot, but this whole, no freshman House member ever gets appointed to committee, or no freshman senator ever gets, like that kind of garbage needs to end. But that's where we're at. We're at that place because we've allowed them, as the people, to gain that confidence that it doesn't matter. By when Woodrow Wilson's support and whatever dubious crap he was telling the state legislatures at that time to allow the 17th Amendment to pass and give up that power to appoint senators, whatever the hell was going on in that year, to allow such stuff to happen, okay? That damage rings true today. Because you know what they were trying to avoid? They were trying to avoid Mitt Romney getting pulled out of the Senate. They were trying to avoid Liz Cheney being yanked out of the Senate. Yeah, you can say, oh, well, we voted her out. Elections got her out. Yeah, how many years later? What if they go off the rails a year in? Now there's 5 years you got to sit there and watch them just do damage to this nation for 5 years. 5 years you got to sit there and you got to watch them, right, undermine everything that they promised you to do. And you could do nothing for another 5 years. That's not how it was designed to work. It was designed to be, whoa, what is Romney saying? What is Cheney doing? That's ridiculous. I think that they need to get out of there. You go to your local legislator and you start rattling some cages. And when enough of you go, the legislature says, that's it. That's it. The clown comes out. It's like live at the Apollo. Clown comes out, grabs him around the neck, pulls him out of there. That's how it's supposed to be done. Bob over on Facebook, and training for COS, we're taught specifically to keep political affiliation out of it. Yeah, absolutely. Don't wear a MAGA hat. Yeah, and it's not because you don't like Donald Trump, right? It's not because, every time I criticize Trump, I have to remind people that I actually voted for the guy twice. And if he's in there again, I'll probably do it again. I mean, he's not a perfect man. He's flawed in so many ways. But I just feel like at this point, let's just spend that 4 years doing battle and then get someone who actually gets legislation passed in after that. Like, let a DeSantis come in or somebody like that after the fact. But you're right. It's not political. And frankly, I will validate what Bob's saying, because I talk to grassroots folks. Like, I've had them on. We've talked about, I had Sheila Malloy on from New Jersey, district captain out there. She was promoting their cause fest and stuff like that. But I talked to them, and yeah, offset, and we don't really have that conversation on set, but like offset, that as we just have these conversations, it's like clear that everyone in the room is in agreement that this ain't political. Mike Arnold, same thing. Like, dude, it ain't about any of that. It ain't about red, blue, or any of that. It's about red, white, and blue. And I've yet to come across an actual grassroots cause supporter who has not mentioned that in some way, shape, or form. Now, when confronted with a Marxist, that's a different story. But like I said, that's not a Democrat. Like, even though all Marxists are Democrats, not all Democrats are Marxists. And that's a distinction that is worth making. It's a distinction that is absolutely worth making. They are not all Marxists. There are plenty of them who are not. So look, I'm looking at this now. I've gone pretty well past the hour, which I usually do when I get in full rant mode. But I do want this. Look, I'm in the middle of shadow ban land right now, so like these phases come and go. They unlocked the doors maybe 3 weeks ago, and I immediately started coming out with some with some school board videos and celebrating parents and exposing some of these schools for what they're trying to do, along with other content. And it didn't take long before they pushed me right back into the shadow ban land, especially on YouTube. I had people on last week are like, dude, like, I'm watching on YouTube and I'm the only one here, but I went over to Rumble and there's like 19 people here. It's like, and on Rumble, there's like 600 followers. On YouTube, there's like 1,400. Facebook is clearly But even Facebook doesn't have as much as Rumble, and I have 17,800 followers on Facebook. Like, they don't like me, these folks, but I don't care. I'm going to keep using their platforms, and I'm going to keep screaming, and I'm going to keep sharing, and I'm going to figure it out. I don't have the time to do, to get all crazy into it because I have a lot going on, a career, family, etc. But I don't get paid for. I don't need their money. That's like, I don't care about their money. It was nice when I first got monetized. Actually, just that month, I had 2 videos that made almost $1,000. I was like, whoa, this could be, maybe this could be something. Well, Facebook figured that out, and we're like, After that month, every video for like a month and a half that I put out was not only not getting a lot of views, like not getting a lot of views when I'm not being shadow banned would be like 10,000, 15,000, something like that. The ones that get a lot of views would be like 65,000, etc. Well, these videos, as soon as they cut that check to me, it was like 100 views. Now, mind you, at that point, I had like 16,000 followers. So it was like, if I have 16,000 followers and I put out a video, I would think by accident, I would get like 500 views, 600 views, just by people going, "Oh, who's this?" "Oh yeah, I remember this guy," right? Like, whatever. One time I had 99 shares and 103 views. I was like, all right, I see what you're doing here. I see what you're doing here, you social media people. But it's all good because every now and then they unlock the doors, and then I go ape crap and start running it, right? So, and I just wait for those moments, and I go ahead and do it, and eventually the following will get large enough that we can go ahead and we can start doing a Patreon or something like that, and then use these social media tools to promote that. But I ain't there yet, and I still got a career, so I still got to feed the family. You can't forget the basis, right? It's God, family, country. And so I got to make sure the family's taken care of before I can save the world. So be it. Donald, thank you. I am trying to give them hell, my friend. I am trying, and I will be out here at minimum every Wednesday evening at 5:30. And for those of you, 5:30 Pacific time, and for those of you who have made it to this point in the broadcast, I will tell you, and I say this in the beginning, I'm going to say it at the end, I will tell you, at any moment, no matter what I'm doing on Wednesday Night Live, it's about the conversation. I can plenty much fill the time with me flapping at the lip. But at the same time, it's about the conversation. So if you're ever on, even if I'm talking about WEF or some school issue or something like that, if you have a question on Article 5, just pop it out there, and I will stop whatever the hell I'm doing to go ahead and answer that question. And I will make it a point to stop whatever I'm doing and answer that question because it matters, right? All of that matters. Bob said, "I'm going to share your site to my state captain." Yeah. They kind of know. They kind of know the page, Bob. I don't know. I don't know the whole infrastructure, right? So I don't know that, but I know there's a lot of people in cause who are aware of the page. I don't know that. I don't know how many, right? I guess you guys got 5 million folks out there. That would be kind of that would be kind of cool. Certainly, it couldn't hurt to have a beast, audience like that sharing. But I absolutely appreciate it, and I appreciate everyone actually, for jumping on, commenting. Those are the types of things that help the channel grow. Those are the types of things that help the movement move forward. And I may not have the impact that an organization like Convention States Project has, but look, every bit counts, folks. Every bit counts, and that includes you. So take the time, whether you go to my website at thepatriotthinktank.com or you go to straight to conventionstates.com. However you get there, just get there and sign the petition. Sign the petition and then start. I usually encourage people, go watch the JBS first. Right? Watch their stuff first. Watch all the fear mongering and all the madness and the nonsense. Watch it all first. Get it out of your system. And get yourself all riled up and thinking, oh, we can never, and then go and read the other side of the argument. Then go and get yourself, the good reading materials to start learning what's what. Because whichever one you do first, I'm telling you, if there's anything that you walk away from me with, these people are full of crap. They're full of crap. Trust the founders did not just go crazy with one section, one little clause of the Constitution, one little clause that was designed to be the absolute failsafe, the absolute when all else fails, break glass failsafe to save this nation from a tyrannical, ever-growing government. Period. Period. All right, folks. So just remember, it's every Wednesday night, 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. I am always up for questions. I am always up for conversation. And before I get myself into another rant about another another thing that comes to mind that Article 5 can save, I'm out.